Alrighty, everyone, welcome back to another live stream here on the channel. Hopefully everyone is having a great, this time it is indeed Tuesday. Yesterday I said Tuesday, but today it is definitely Tuesday. So welcome to another stream. Let's see, we have it in the chat. We have Jake, Crafty, Face, as well as Sam and everyone else who is watching, may not be chatting. Also Ripper, welcome to the stream. Glad to have you guys all in here once again. It's not that likely that northern Texas sees snow, at least within like this month. Now next month there's a pretty good chance you'll end up with some snow in portions in northern Texas sometime next month. Just depends how many systems we end up getting. But yeah, let's go ahead and go over to our main scene here. See if everything looks good. Looks like it does to me. So we are talking about the potential for a couple tornadoes today. Really not that big of a day for severe weather, kind of like what we were dealing with yesterday, where everything started to uptrend, and then once we got to day of, everything downtrends. So for today, a very similar situation. We did just get a tornado watch out for the next about 5 hours and 37 minutes, I believe that is out for, till about 7 p.m. Eastern. That tornado watch is out across portions of central and southern Alabama. And really, we've just seen an underperformance in our instability's northern extent for today. Now, instability itself, in terms of the actual numbers of instability that we actually have an overperformance. We have near 3,000 CAPE in southern Mississippi, whereas we were anticipating closer to 2,000, maybe even 1,500. But the thing is, our warm sector is not pushing as far north. Our warm front, I should say specifically, is not pushing as far north as what we were anticipating. Exact same thing happened with yesterday's event as well. The main reason for it happening today, though, is because we've had a lot of early morning convection across the northern portions and even some of the central portions of Alabama today, and that's withholding any instability from getting well up into like the Birmingham areas pointing north regions. So right now, really the only storm we're keeping an eye on is this storm that has undergone multiple mergers here near Whitehall. That's out here in central Alabama, just to the southeast of Selma in central Alabama. And we're also keeping an eye on a couple of miniature supercells out here that are trying to get their mid-level cyclones to rotate, but none of them have really been able to succeed with that. They've just stayed as miniature little supercells. And then there's also this mess of velocities that we're keeping an eye on, but not really concerned of back up here in Rockford. So there's a very, very regional area where instability and wind shear overlaps today. If we take a look at generally what our current instability looks like here, that's what it generally looks like. So your main instability is there in that bluish color. So this is really the prime area, the main area for supercell development, and this is slowly drifting off to the north and east, just very slowly, gradually pushing off to the northeast there. But it's not really the best environment, honestly. I mean, we'll continue to see this environment drift up to the north, but really the only thing we're going to watch today is any storms that fire along that area and ride with that region of instability to the north. So like these cells down here are probably going to end up being the main storms to watch for today's overall tornado threat. Welcome, Chip, to the live stream. Glad to see you in here. So let's go ahead and go over to mesoanalysis so we can do a little bit of a dive into the background environment and what we're seeing here with today's environment as a whole. So let's start with the most important part, and that is the 500 millibar wind speeds here. And right off the bat, definitely not a good overall 500 millibar chart for severe storms, especially across the southern U.S. Really not a good pattern whatsoever for severe weather in this case. But you could see this large trough here that is located over much of the central U.S., deepening low pressure with the potential of blizzard conditions up there towards the Twin Cities and northeast of the Twin Cities in Minnesota for today. Instability is present. That's really, if we didn't have as much instability as what we have today, we really wouldn't be dealing with any severe weather. Like if it was just 500 Cape today or even 1,000 Cape today, we probably would see next to no severe weather. But because we do have that 2,000 to 3,000 Cape range, that is helping. It is helping to contribute to some better lower level lapse rates, as well as helping to kind of fill in for those mid-level lapse rates not being as good. But still, those mid-level lapse rates there are going to be very, very poor. If we take a look here, mid-level lapse rates, only about 5.5 to 6 degree mid-level lapse rates there. Very poor mid-level lapse rates. Looking a bit closer at your instability, again, the main area for your instability here, the main area for instability and severe weather is going to be right with that front here. So we're really looking at right in here is the main spot for that overlap of instability and wind shear. And if we take a look at supercell composite, you can see on the northern side there, that's where our best environment is. So this, if we had any semi-discrete storms in here, that would definitely be our conditional strong tornado threat being a very real possibility there. But thankfully, there's no storms in that very well-primed environment, at least the best environment that we have for today. If we take a little bit of a sounding in here, just to see, you can see it's not the best. You do have a little dry slot here at the kind of 750 millibar slot there. That might be preventing some storms from firing, actually. But it's really, honestly, not even the best curvature either. Earlier, is it further south that has better curvature? So that's a big problem for today. Actually, this does have better curvature. I see it now. Yeah, you do have some better curvature. My thing wasn't pulled far enough up. There you go. You still can't see it. There you go. So there's your lower level winds, and you can see they are southerly winds and then southwesterly winds and then slowly changing to due westerly winds. That is good curvature. So that's a good amount of wind shear, and you can see that little dry slot. So that dry slot there, as well as the lack of better mid-level lapse rates, which you can see here, how it's cooling with height, and then there's a little bit of warming. Just that tiny little change here. See how it kind of goes off track? It's not a perfect line. There's a little bit of red that goes outside of that perfect line, and that is why you have bad mid-level lapse rates, and that's the main reason why today won't be some big tornado outbreak. And you should be able to see that here reflecting, yep, there you go, 0 to 3 kilometer lapse rates are 5.9. So very, very low mid-level lapse rates there. And then your lower levels, I think, are about 7 out here. Yeah, about 7.5 to 6.5 lapse rates. But you can see here, they're not all overlapping. If we draw this all out here. So your best lapse rates are south of this black line here. And if we draw out your instability, you could see your instability is also south of that black line. But then we switch on over to wind shear, and it should be completely different. Yep, you can see your best wind shear is actually north of where your best instability is, and your best mid-level lapse rates, which really aren't going to matter too much, but I mean, they are north of that area. But in this case, your mid-level lapse rates are pretty much there in an area where we're not going to be seeing severe weather today. Only really this area is the region that our mid-level lapse rates matter whatsoever. Really, everything is just going to be very poor for mid-level lapse rates. So our ingredients don't overlap whatsoever in southern Alabama or northern Alabama. So there's this little slot here on the warm front and near the cold front. And that is where our wind shear and our instability best overlap. And that's where our threat will be the highest for today. And like I said, this will drift slowly off to the northeast as well. So honestly, I'm a little bit surprised. They actually did. They did extend that slight risk a little bit more up to the northeast. But honestly, we could see tornadoes even as far up as like northeastern Alabama, northwestern Georgia. Just it seems like that might be a bit too conditional for them to introduce that 5% all the way back up north there. Still could see those two little areas we're watching, two little hook echoes, tiny little miniature supercell there and a bigger supercell there. So we'll keep an eye on both of those areas for the potential of a tornado to develop in the very near future here. But it's not very strong velocities in this area whatsoever. Very, very weak. And then this is far from our radar, so some of this is probably contaminated. And you can even see your highest velocities are actually inside of a clear slot here. So there's your clear slot. Right in here is your clear slot. And you can see that's where your highest velocities there in the blue is located. So definitely not the most reliable scan there, but that's probably our strongest storm at the moment. And then, like I said, these are too far south away from our best wind shear. So it's just, our ingredients are not overlapping like we were initially anticipating. And it's really all because of the morning convection. All because of that morning convection that we had earlier. Guess what? This morning. Yeah, that's the reason why all of our ingredients aren't overlapping, because it wiped out. And man, it wasn't even that weak of a line either. Look at this. This is earlier today. And this is not a weak line. This is a line that is fully sweeping out your entire environment out here in central Alabama, in northern Alabama. So it's actually a bit of a shocker we're even seeing this much destabilization occur. So that is the biggest issue. We were not expecting this line at all. We were expecting overconvection up in this area, but we were not expecting it to be a well-organized line like that. And I think the 0ZHRRR had a line like that, but then the 01ZHRRR completely changed and disregarded that line. So our models were kind of flip-flopping on that. They weren't really in great agreement on that. And then we even had some lingering rain showers all day today. So really not a good environment whatsoever in northern Alabama. The only area that we have all that cape at is regions south of where that line was. So that's why we have all of our instability. If we go ahead and turn it on, yeah, most of your instability is south of where that line moved through earlier today. Now you can see, watch this area in here. You always want to watch like the northwest tip of that instability axis. And you can see how it is shifting up to the north. So our environment is slowly but surely spreading up to the north. And again, it's going to be right on that instability axis where our best environment is, because it's getting into more wind shear. What's up, weather updates? Glad to see you in the stream. Kevin Joyce, glad to see you in here as well. Yeah, with the northern extent, you have better wind shear. But that instability does drop off. So it's just going to come down to how far north our instability can get today. That's what it's going to come down to. If our cape doesn't get far enough north, we're not going to see much at all today. And if our cape does get far enough north, we're likely going to see a couple tornadoes today. Another little area of circulation here near Rockford in central Alabama that we have to watch. So there's just a few little areas here, right? Just a few little areas, like 3 to 5 little regions of broad rotation that we want to keep an eye on with these storms. Nothing that is an imminent tornado, nothing that is a big tornado threat now or anything like that, but stuff that could continue to intensify as that warm sector pushes more north. We could see that threat increase. Another thing is these storms here too. Yeah, you can already see a little broad area of rotation with that. Let me get rid of this radar imagery. There we go. Yeah, the cloud tops on these storms have grown quite a bit over the last hour and a half. So these could also be a tornado threat there. You could see quite a few weak areas of just velocity, not necessarily rotation, aside from maybe this northern one that does look like some rotation, but just some weak areas of velocity in here that we want to keep an eye on. This does look like an area of rotation here. This is just west of Tuscaloosa, Alabama. But you could see how we are on a more clustered mode here. But that's not actually why I was wanting to point this out. I was actually going to point this out because it is quicker than anticipated. It's what, about 1:30 p.m.? So that's going to be our line that pushes through Alabama, and there's not going to be severe weather behind it. So this is moving relatively quicker than what most of our models actually were showing. Yesterday, the 0ZH-RRR didn't have this front getting here where it is right now. The HRRR from yesterday said it would be about 7 or 8 p.m. So according to yesterday's model runs, this front is about 4 to 5 hours quicker than anticipated. And that's probably, if anything, probably a good thing for severe weather, actually, because this front is pushing through in the peak heating. So it should be able to help with that instability access and lift it further up to the north. So if anything, it's actually a bit worse in terms of a better chance for a tornado threat. There's a better chance for tornadoes today because this front is a bit quicker. Since we are at the peak time of heating. If it was closer to, like what it was saying yesterday, closer to maybe that, like 7 o'clock time frame, right about there, 7 or 8 o'clock time frame, your instability would be decreasing. But in this case, your instability is still increasing, and that front pushing through is going to act kind of like a lifting mechanism and help push that cape further up northward, maybe even as far north as getting 500 instability all the way up into just east of Huntsville later on this evening, if we can continue to see rapid destabilization like we are. We got blizzard warnings. If we do, it would not surprise me. Yeah, I'm not shocked with that at all. Complete whiteout conditions happening out here. So blizzard warnings now in effect up here in northeastern South Dakota. Those just got issued by the National Weather Service up here. So, dangerous conditions ongoing. And you can see all the winter storm warnings that we have across Minnesota, northern Wisconsin, into even Michigan. And we do actually have lake effect snow warnings also in effect up here in New York and Pennsylvania. Sorry, I thought I heard something. I was listening. Hello, Jefferson. Glad to see you in here. Were there a lot of tornadoes yesterday? I think so. We had like 5 tornadoes between like how much? I'm gonna look. It was like 3 to 5 tornadoes around north of Houston. Because they were quick spin-ups. That storm produced a lot of quick spin-ups, and then there was one a little bit stronger and a little bit longer lasting tornado north of Houston. So we had like 3 to 5 tornadoes, depends how quickly they lifted. 3 to 5 tornadoes on the northern side of Houston, one of which was decently strong. And then I think we had a unwarned random tornado in western Mississippi very late last night. Keeping an eye on that little area of rotation there in Rockford. We got to see which one. I think our other radar site, 36 miles. Yeah, the other radar site, the one that Joyce is using, is the better radar site in this case. So, yeah, you can see that area of rotation looking pretty good right now. Probably one of the better areas of rotations that we've seen today. So we'll need to keep a close eye on this Cruzville. If you're in Cruzville, Kellyton, Goodwater, that's out here in east central Alabama, just northwest of Alexander City. Make sure to keep an eye on that storm there. A little bit of a rotation couplet starting to increase there. How's today looking? Meh. Meh. I think we could see a few tornadoes. I think we could see a few spin-up tornadoes. We could probably see a couple brief, weak spin-up tornadoes, and then maybe one strong tornado if we can get a discrete supercell to be like latched onto that warm front all by itself. Like that's why I'm watching this one closely, because it's very close to that warm front. It is really close to that warm front. That warm front's right around where this blue area is. So that storm is really close to the warm front, but it keeps getting mergers, and those mergers keep hurting it. Hello, Ben. Welcome to the stream. So today's like, it's a low-end slight risk day. It's a low-end slight risk day. I don't think we will see a 10 sig or a 10%. I don't think that's needed whatsoever. A 5% is barely even needed in this case. It's such a conditional risk. Yesterday shouldn't have been conditional, but it was. Yesterday shouldn't have been a conditional tornado risk, but it ended up being a very conditional tornado risk. We only got one storm that produced multiple tornadoes and then a random spin up inside of a line in Mississippi. What's a merger? A merger is where one storm impacts another storm. So if we go back here and I'll loop it for you, you could see all these little storms hitting the bigger storm. Those are all mergers impacting it. Sometimes mergers can help storms. Other times they can disrupt the main storm's updraft and hurt the storm. Anyway, this goes enhanced. I find it nearly impossible at this point. Earlier this morning, I would have also said nearly impossible. Honestly, last night was the only time this thing looked a little close to enhanced risk worthy. Last night with the 0Z run, it looked a bit close to an enhanced risk worthy event, but really it's conditional. Both of these threats were conditional, which, like I said, yesterday wasn't supposed to be, but it ended up being. So we have 8 tornado reports from yesterday, 5 of which for filtered reports. So we'll have to see what the National Weather Service out there in Houston finds. They may find that it was like a bit longer tract of a tornado and such. It was only 3 tornadoes, or maybe it was multiple spin-up tornadoes and maybe it was closer to 5 tornadoes. It just depends. We'll have to see what Houston finds out there when they go and survey the area. What I do know is one of them was definitely a damaging tornado and possibly was strong. I mean, even a storm like this, which has a really good supercellular structure to it, is still struggling with today's environment. Which I will say, this might even be getting a bit north of the warm front, so that could be why if we switch over to, yeah, like that is probably on, if not almost north of the warm front at this point. I'd say it's on the warm front. So that's probably directly on the warm front. So we'll need to watch to see if those green velocities can wrap around a bit. Right now, it's just red velocities that have wrapped around. So we'll have to see if we get any more green. When's the last time we had a decent risk? I don't know. I know we had a 10 sig tour. Was that in October? I think that was in late October. I feel like, yeah, that was probably in late October. And before that, I don't even know. Like, when's the last time we had a decent 5% greater tornado risk? I have no idea. I cannot remember. Like, yesterday was a ginormous 5%. It would have it would have taken a lot of tornadoes to verify yesterday's 5% tornado risk. So the smaller the 5% tornado risk, the less tornadoes you need to verify it. That's a given because we base tornado risks off of 25 miles of a given point. So the larger the tornado risk, the more tornadoes you're going to need to verify the risk. And also, obviously, the higher probability the tornado risk is, you also need more tornadoes and stronger tornadoes to verify it. So I can't remember the last time we had a verified 5% or greater risk. Yeah, once we hit like mid-late July, weather just decided to hit the full-blown stop button. And then, my goodness, in early November, it really hit that button again because we had like nothing was happening for 2 weeks straight in weather. So this looks like a decent supercell on reflectivity here, even a little merger coming up into that area of interest. But on velocity, there is next to no winds moving here. It's just it's just an ordinary thunderstorm. There's nothing special to it on velocity. And then still want to keep an eye on like these little areas down in here. Those tinier storms. Go back up here to our front. Not much happening here. Still just like 3 areas of very broad velocities, not necessarily rotation just yet. We did have an area of rotation earlier that we pointed out, but you could see that faded relatively quickly. So let's go over to the HRRR model run. We're going to use the awesome HRRR sub-hourly model run from WeatherWise, which gives you 15-minute model run data completely for free. You can look at this exact 15-minute product in your browser anywhere on your phone or on your laptop or computer or a tablet, whatever you got. So over the next couple minutes here, we're going to see this storm slowly push off to the northeast. The HRRR kind of has it maintaining all the way up until about Talladega, and then finally it starts to fizzle on out there. It weakens after it passes Talladega here in about an hour and a half, 2 hours. Also does have some additional cells, the ones we're watching way down here currently. It has those moving off to the northeast, but not really much happening out of them. They really kind of just chill there. Not really a whole lot comes from those storms. And then it's not picking up too well on our storm here east of Selma. We have a storm right in this area here, and it's not really picking up on that at all. That might be what the HRRR thinks left of it, which is wrong. So not really picking up well on our storm east of Selma here. And then our front, I mean, there's not really a whole lot there. You could see west of Tuscaloosa here in about an hour, 45 minutes. It does get a little bit more semi-discrete, but here's the problem. Take note of that. So we'll go to this is almost exactly an hour from now. This is where the storms are said to be on the HRRR an hour from now. Switch to radar, and they're there. They're already there. So the HRRR is about an hour too slow with our main front, which could be the difference between these producing tornadoes and not producing tornadoes. And then out here, like I said, it's just completely ignoring this storm in between Selma and Montgomery, which has been the main storm that we've been watching for the last, well, I've been watching it for the last couple hours, but here on stream, we've been watching it the whole stream, which is only 29 minutes thus far. I know James Spann was covering it this morning. He was live, I think, around like 6 a.m. I think it was live about 6 a.m. Eastern. And then he went live on his YouTube channel at 7:20 Eastern. Pretty sure. He's not impressed with this setup at all. He's not. He said that the morning round had a good amount of wind shear, but not a good amount of instability. And then the afternoon round has a good amount of instability, but not a good amount of wind shear. He said it more smart than that, though. He used bigger weather terms. But that's generally what his thinking was. Better cape in the afternoon, less wind shear in the afternoon. Better shear in the morning, less cape in the morning. So overall, you just don't have those overlapping ingredients. And that's what we're seeing. The only place they overlap is like central Alabama right in here. And we're still not seeing anything because our mid-level lapse rates are keeping everything at bay. I mean, we do have these few little areas of spin, but none of it is notable by any means. Wonder if we'll get a December 28th of last year type risk this winter. Probably not. We all thought we would get that high risk. Yeah. I mean, it had like 100 and some tornadoes. I think there was like 120 some tornado reports. So, I mean, it probably would have verified as a... Actually, I gotta withhold that because I don't know how many strong tornadoes we have. A high risk, you have to have strong to violent tornadoes to verify. But it definitely was a bunch of tornadoes. I remember we had tornado warnings from like north of Jackson all the way down to northern Mississippi. There was a huge line in this area pushing across, and there was tornadoes everywhere, all over the place, very late in the evening hours into the overnight hours. I think there was like 20 to 30 some tornado warnings across that whole area, just sweeping across central southern Mississippi and even into eastern Louisiana. I doubt we'll get an event like that, but it is possible. That's how second season goes. Either you get a bunch of slop and next to nothing, or you get a bunch of slop and then there's this one event that really sticks out. Like last year, December 28th. 2021 was December 15th and December 10th. We had two in 2021. And then in 2022, correct me if I'm wrong, November 4th was a significant tornado outbreak. I think we had 2 or 3 violent tornadoes on that day. And then I can't remember anything from 2023. I cannot remember any second season events from 2023 that were notable. Second season being from like early October all the way till like I guess you could consider it. Okay, so second season runs from like early October all the way till I'd say the beginning of December typically. Typically it's not that active in December, so that's weird how both of our main second season events in 2021 and 2024 were in December. In 2023, January 12th, 24th, December 9th. I recognize that one. So probably December 9th. You gotta... So like I said, or was trying to say, maybe second season runs from early October all the way till like the beginning of tornado season from, like I said, early October all the way through maybe late February. But the problem is you get a new year. So you can't count January... What did you say? January... Or was it early 2023? Yeah, if you're talking about January, early 2023, that would count. But like your tornado count for second season, it's going to have to end right when that year ends, obviously. I see January 12th, 2023. Yeah, 87 tornado reports there. You said the 24th. 31 tornado reports. And then I remember 2023, December 9th, I believe it was. 52 tornadoes. Yeah, I think I remember that event in around Clarksville. Yeah. I do remember that. So yeah, we have like, it seems like every single second season we have one notable event that sticks out, or multiple. In 2023's case, we had 3. And then of course 2021 we had 2 very notable ones. And then last year we had a very notable one. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see what's going to be the notable one this year. And it seems like it tends to be December and January. Late late December, really actually anytime in December. Anytime in December all the way till mid-January. So from about mid-December to mid-January seems to be the best chance for that big second season event. Still broad rotation here, not really. I should call it broad velocities, not really rotation, because the red and the green aren't touching yet, so it's not necessarily rotation. It's just broad velocities that we need to keep an eye on to see if they do end up spinning up there. Little areas back up here, one in Goodwater. A little bit of velocities there, same in Kellyton. Again, nothing that is notable for an imminent tornado threat. Back towards Tuscaloosa. Just a couple little areas of velocities here, mainly signifying a damaging wind threat. None of this, I mean, I guess we could keep an eye on this one just in case, but none of this is really something I'd keep an eye on for a tornado threat. And then still we do have these mini supercells down here that are doing nothing as well. So far, underwhelming. Yesterday was relatively underwhelming, aside from that one strong tornado in northern Houston. It was a relatively a significant underperformance. It was like, really, it was just that one area that verified. Really just that one region, because of that one storm north of Houston, verified. But remember, we had that giant tornado risk all the way from Houston, all the way back up towards almost Tyler, Longview, through Shreveport, all the way back into Jackson, Mississippi. So, one supercell producing tornadoes in northern Houston doesn't verify the tornado threat back in central Louisiana. So the mid-level lapse rates are definitely what's withholding today's event from going crazy. And yesterday it was the lower level lapse rates. So lapse rates are definitely an issue. The main event today is probably going to be the blizzard. That's probably going to be your main event today. We got a new HRRR coming in right now. Not yet on Weatherwise, though. Weatherwise needs to add a precipitation type MRMS. I don't know if they are aware that they don't have one. Because they do have one for... They have a precipitation type for radar here. Precipitation type right there. But they don't have it for MRMS. I do want to go and take a GR2 up there. GR2's radar is way better for winter weather. I do want to take that all the way up here to, what is it? Northern South Dakota, I believe. Should be right around this area. Yep. Look at all that snow, man. And your low pressure is quite quickly deepening in this area. It's probably not going to get anything stronger than about a 996 millibar. I'd say is probably the strongest it will get. Right now, let's go see what it is. SPC. Boom. It is... it's only 1,006 right now. It's only 1,006 right now, but it is going to be deepening really mainly tomorrow morning is when it will be deepening. It could be into the high-end 990s tomorrow morning. Yeah. It might get to 994 possibly Wednesday morning as it goes over the Great Lakes. That's where your low pressure will probably peak at intensity. Have any cams up there? I'm sure we do. Well, we got to check, though, because a lot of the cams recently, there's a lot stricter copyright rules around them from what I've been seeing on these camera sites here. Crazy how even cameras have strict copyright rules. Let's see. Yeah, so I gotta figure out if I'm allowed to show these real quick. Let's see. I gotta try to find it. I'm not gonna be able to. How good are these cameras? If they are good, I'll continue to search, but if they're not good, I'm not gonna bother. I'm not gonna bother to try to find out if these are terrible cameras. They are pretty bad cameras. Yeah, they're not videos. It's about what you'd expect. It's complete whiteout conditions. The roads are pretty much completely covered. So it's your normal blizzard conditions. Yeah, the moderate risk in Iowa. It was either on the 28th or 29th. That was the biggest underperformance by far. I remember that because I was coming back from Talladega. I was coming back from Talladega, and we had that moderate risk. I believe that was... I can't remember. I cannot remember. One or the other. One or the other. 28th or 29th. One violent tornado doesn't verify a high risk. It depends if it's only one, if it's just like one violent tornado and absolutely nothing else, yeah. But if you have like a violent tornado and then 20 other significant tornadoes inside of a relatively small high risk, that's easy verification. What was the largest tornado this year? Probably April 26th, I believe. We had that ginormous wedge tornado in Nebraska. I wasn't able to cover that because, again, I was actually in Talladega. I was down in, actually, I was in central Alabama. Then we went to Talladega the next day. But I don't know officially what was the largest tornado or what the largest one was. Let's see. See if there's a list of largest tornadoes. Because I really don't want to go looking through 1,320 some tornadoes to try to find the largest one. Plevna? I'm pretty sure that wasn't even all a tornado, right? Yeah, what Sam said. A mile wide's still pretty big, but I'm pretty sure we had a larger tornado in Nebraska. I'm going to go look back at April real quick. And see how large that one was. Oh, it ain't even going to tell me, is it? Okay, so that was a half-mile wide, apparently. But I don't think that's the correct tornado. Might actually have been. So apparently that one, I guess, was a half-mile wide. I know we beat that. Wait, unless that's in yards, do you guys know if they measure tornadoes in yards or feet on the damage assessment toolkit? It'd be nice if they told me. It just says width is 2,200 or so. I remember that one in Texas. Is that the one you're talking about, Caden? I remember we had that ginormous one in Texas. When was that? Ah, there it is. Doesn't say. Well, I know we've had some big tornadoes. That's all I know, but I can't figure out the width of them. All I know is there's been some strong and large tornadoes this year. Is this updating? Yeah, this is. You see upper level mesocyclone there on our storm north of Montgomery. That is getting to a bit more of a lower level. We'll have to see if those red velocities increase any further. So we are seeing an increase in rotation in the upper levels here, but we'll have to see if that translates to the lower levels as well. Let's go back over to weatherwise again. These are not doing anything down here. Not surprised. So really just still the main things to watch right now are these storms right along the warm front. And then just in case, we'll watch these storms along the other front as well as these mini supercells down here. But the main area to watch definitely is this batch right over here. Because this is the batch that has had the most rotation today. This one's had multiple areas of rotation. This one's had a couple areas of rotation. This one's formed weak areas of rotations and then died out. This one, I have no idea about that one. That one looks like it's just starting to do something. Not really doing anything on that far northern one. How far east is this? So this is, yeah, near Montgomery. This could be getting on the edge of the warm sector. Nope. Definitely not. It's not on the edge of the warm sector. The edge of the warm sector is actually way in eastern Georgia. I don't think we're going to be getting that far. Now, the edge of the best environment in terms of like a favorable tornado environment is eastern Alabama. So if these storms get any closer to Roanoke in eastern Alabama, they're probably going to start dying out even further. Yeah, the environment in front of this supercell right here is actually fairly impressive. Outside of the mid-level lapse rates, it is fairly impressive. And even then, the mid-level lapse rates aren't absolutely atrocious. They are about 6 to 6.5, according to the sounding. And then the lower level is about 6.5. They're like the lower levels are just barely lower than the upper levels. So I'm going to take one directly in front of this storm, and I will tell you what I get. 6.2 lower level, 6.4 mid-level. Oh, actually, my bad. I said that wrong. Other way around. 6.4 lower level and 6 mid-level. Wrong way. Which is not, like, that's bad, yeah, but it's not as bad as the 5 mid-levels that we have in southern Alabama. Literally, we have just straight up 5. Like, the mid-levels are absolutely atrocious in southern Alabama. So at least in central Alabama, they're right about 6 or barely below 6. Really starting to look better in the upper levels there. So we'll need to watch this closely. I would watch this very, very closely if I'm right along the Highway 231 area, west of Tallahassee. Tallahassee. That is how you spell. Is that how you spell Tallahassee? Where's Tallahassee, Florida? I need to compare these two. No, okay, that's Tallahassee. So this is like Tallahassee. This is Tallahassee, Alabama. That's Tallahassee, Alabama, right there. Not Tallahassee, Tallahassee. Hazcam. I haven't got permission to use those yet. I really need to get in contact. I've actually already gotten in contact with the person who owns them, but I haven't been able to seal the deal to be able to use the rights for that camera. Looks okay. I mean, it looks a bit outflow dominant on from this angle at least. That's got to be more rain wrapped. Yeah, we must be looking at the southern end, aren't we? So we're looking from south to north. So we're looking at the end of the mesocyclone. We're looking at this portion of the mesocyclone right in here from that camera. No, Connor signed. Somebody signed Connor, and he strictly made Connor his chaser. So nobody can use Connor ever again, except for that one person who signed him. So Connor's a signed chaser now. No one but one singular YouTuber can use Connor now. I want to see the blizzard. Go to South Dakota. South Dakota DOT traffic cams. There we go. Satellite on the system, it's nuts. Yeah. I see it. Hascams is free to use, but at least normally. For me though, I don't think so. It's free to use for personal use, I know that for sure. What's this garbage? I need to go see what he said. Okay. Pressure of our low, I think it's 1,004 or 1,006. One or the other. 1,006. It's going to be very slowly deepening. It's not going to be rapidly deepening like I thought it was. It's a very large, broad low. Yeah, like your low pressure's like all in this area here. Your main, according to, well, it depends which one you want to look at, because if you look at surface analysis, your main low pressure is I gotta look at surface analysis. It looks like it's generally, it's so broad I actually can't even tell. It's somewhere in, like, in here, I want to say. Because you've got westerlies in this area, and then you've got southerlies down in here. So it's definitely in Minnesota. It's either, like, right just east of South Dakota or possibly even south of the Twin Cities, where your surface low is. And your mid-level low, that is indeed in central South Dakota. So your mid-level low is in here. So it's not a very like stacked low pressure here. Your surface low is very broad and closer located to somewhere in here. Your mid-level low is where all that snow is generally. Very close to where all that snow is. That's what's helping with your blizzard conditions. And then your upper level low, let's see if I can find where that is. Your upper level low also seems to be close to where your mid-level low is. Your upper level low looks to be up in here. So you got your upper level low up here, your mid-level low down near Watertown, and then your lower level low pressure down in here. That's where your surface low pressure is. Now, once those all align, that's when the system's going to strengthen even more, and that will be up here where they just issued more blizzard warnings. That's going to be closer to where our system is a 996, 994 millibar low, and it's going to dump like 3 feet of snow up there. This area is only going to see about 8 inches of snow, maybe upwards of a foot, whereas this region is going to see upwards of 3 feet. So it's going to be a lot more organized up there in Michigan. Still not the best velocities on that, but it's getting its act together slowly but surely. Look back at Hazcam. All right, let's see. Get this microphone out of the way. Nah, Scud. I don't think this is in the right area, is it? Let me check. Yeah, nope, definitely. You're definitely looking at more of Scud. The actual area of circulation is actually behind that. No, zoom back in. I gotta figure out and make sure it's Scud. That's definitely part of a mesocyclone, though. That might be the end of it. Like, what you're seeing there, that's probably this. That's probably what you're seeing. Right there. You were probably looking at this area of convection that's starting to fire on the end of the hook. Which that little area could actually be all it needs to possibly rotate further. That could be a little bit of a push to get this thing to start rotating. It's turned more outflow dominant right now. It looks like it's not outflow dominant on reflectivity, but from a velocity standpoint, you are definitely turning more outflow dominant here. You could see your velocities are going just, where's our radar? Yeah, they're going just this direction. There's no winds coming from the south and pushing up like that. None of them are moving from east to west. They're all moving from west to east. So there's no easterly wind shear here. They're naming this storm? Yeah, whatever. Sure, I'll start naming rain showers. Oh, now that's got a little bit... That's gotten me a little bit more interested there. That small area. See if there's a tiny little region that's trying to rotate. It'd be nice if my reflectivity updated, huh? Nah. I don't see it. See, there's nothing there. There's nothing. It looks better on weatherwise. Yeah, weather-wise lined it up better. So keep an eye on that just in case, but the bulk of your velocity is technically outbound wind speeds. Technically wind speeds that are pushing towards the storm like this. So yeah, not inflow. Then it's not inflow, because inflow would be the red in this case. It's weird because we're vice versa here. Typically green is the velocity that goes into the storm like this, but in this case the green is actually pushing the storm like this because our radar site is right here. So your winds are going towards the radar site. For some reason I forgot the specific term. I'm a little bit rusty. There's a specific velocity term I was looking for there. I called it outbound winds. I'm 90% sure that is incorrect. But it's all these winds are pushing only one direction here. May have been a brief CC. Yeah, there's a lot of CC. Doesn't necessarily mean it's a tornado. You gotta do your chat box here. Here, if we go 6 panel, you ain't gonna be doing that no more. So let's see. I'm guessing you're talking about this little thing right there. Alright, so first off, we start with velocity. There's next to none. NROT, to confirm velocity in an area of rotation, you're at an NROT of 0.38 maximum. You typically look for an NROT greater than 1. Your correlation coefficient is present, and your reflectivity is present. Take a look at ZDR there. There is no drop in ZDR until you get into the clear slot. There's no drop in ZDR, and spectrum width is as gray as it gets. So sometimes when you don't have a lot of velocities and you do have like a big yellow ball in the middle of where that that reflectivity value is, sometimes you can get a tornado that's so weak that radar doesn't pick up on it. But typically that's not going to be when you're this close to the radar. We're only 1,000 away from the radar here, 1,000 feet. So I doubt it. And when you do see a yellow spectrum with ball with minimal velocity, it's probably just some leaves being picked up by a downburst or something in that sorts, not a tornado. It's probably more like a downburst. Maybe some very tiny hail falling with this here. Got a DBZ value up to about 62 there. 63 DBZ, so could have got some really small hail north of Blue Ridge. You could see that velocity, whatever was there, completely faded out. Completely died out there, so. And then we still got this little area of rotation or velocities here. It's not necessarily rotation because you can see your red. There's a lot more red here. There's a lot more southerly winds here pushing near the storm. And then you still do have those winds pushing the storm itself. So that's a better sign for an area to watch for the potential of a tornado. But those winds haven't come together yet. There's still a gray slot right in the middle of that. And these aren't touching gate-to-gate maximums here. So it's not rotation yet, but it is an area to watch because if it does get its act together, it could produce a brief, weak tornado because there is indeed both the red and the green velocities here. Whereas back to our storm in Blue Ridge, there's just green and some contamination red. And then using our radar site there south of Birmingham, Alabama, there's nothing really to look at here. Blizzard time. There's your blizzard. I always find it very fascinating to look at these loops of snowfall, but snowfall's not as interesting to cover. You really got to have traffic cameras, and it's hard to get the rights to traffic cameras unless you contact them. And I'm not one who likes to bug people. I don't like to do that. If I just asked, I probably would be able to use a lot more cameras on this channel, but I don't like bugging people, so I don't ask. I just don't use it. New SPC outlook. I'm quite shocked they kept the 5%. I'm going to be honest with you. With how today is verified thus far, I'm quite shocked they kept the 5% tornado risk. Let me go check the new meso analysis, see if anything is improved. Your instability is pushing a bit more north now. Your warm front's up towards Birmingham at this point. So it has pushed more north. Has your mid-level lapse rates improved at all? Nope. If anything, they've actually gotten worse because they've pushed north. So if anything, your lapse rates have actually worsened over the last hour or two. Another problem we are also potentially facing is the lack of moisture in southern Alabama. Now, our moisture isn't bad. It's at 60 to 63 degree dew points in southern Alabama. The problem is your temperatures are at 81. So when you have a temperature and dew point degree difference of that large, you're looking at about, I don't know, what is that, like 17, 18, depending on exactly where you're looking at. You're going to have much more elevated thunderstorms. So typically for tornadoes, you want a temperature dew point. Really, the perfect temperature dew point is like 65 temps, or rather 65 dews at 70 temps. It's like that 5-degree temperature dew point spread. That's pretty much perfect. That is right about your perfect temperature dew point spread. You could also have something like 70 dew points, 75 temps, 75 dew points, 80 temps. Just right about that 5-degree dew point range is perfect. Once you get beyond that about 11-degree dew point range, once we start talking about like say 60-degree dew points and 71 temps, things start to be a little bit more on the more elevated side of things. So the best range is between like really 1, 0, 0 all the way till about 10 is good. Then once you go from 11 to 15, you're getting a bit elevated, and then 15 plus is elevated. Anything greater than 15, you are getting very elevated. Which means your storm's cloud tops start a lot higher in the atmosphere than what they normally would if you have more surface-based temperature dew point spread. But that's not a problem further to the north here. That's only a problem in like central and southern Alabama where we didn't have that overconvection this morning. So that's another reason here, right in this area. So if you go very far south, your dew points are higher because you're closer to the Gulf. They're closer to 70. Your temperatures are near 80. So that's about a, depending on where you're looking at, an 8 to 10 degree dew point spread. Not horrible, but still getting on that more elevated side. And then in the middle of Alabama, central to south central Alabama, you didn't get that overconvection in the morning to cool temperatures, and you're not close enough to the Gulf to where you have those upper echelon dew points. So that's probably another reason why we're seeing these storms struggle, is because of the more elevated surface profile there. So see, that's what I was talking about with those winds coming together like that. That northern storm, on that last frame, your winds came together there. See how earlier they were kind of going right by each other, no problemo, nothing happening here. And then in the last 5 minutes, the reds have kind of curled into the greens. That means you do have an area of rotation now. We do have to watch for the potential of a tornado imminently in this area. I don't think it may not hit warning criteria from the National Weather Service. It's not strong rotation, so if it does drop a tornado, it's going to be extremely weak. and probably not even be able to loft up much debris. We'll have to see if that is debris right there. We'll have to check our analysis radar on that. So, yeah, this is in a relatively rural area of Alabama. I do see some homes here, but there's no major population out in this area. Yeah, you can see a lot of wooded regions, just some homes every here and there. Not a lot of population. That CC drop. So first thing I'm going to do is check our radar beam here. That's a pretty clean scan. So spectrum width. There's blue in this area, but that doesn't match with CC. So that blue is probably just winds as a whole, maybe even inflow at that point. No ZDR drop. You could see no clear drop in ZDR. You still have these greens and reds. That means there's still just normal, ordinary rain there. The rain hasn't changed directions towards the surface, so there's not likely a tornado ongoing based off of ZDR alone. And that couplet is still broad. That's not a tight couplet. If it was like this, if we had a CC drop here, it was pixel to pixel, and we had that little CC drop, that would be a little bit more believable. But because your couplet is a bit more broad, see these gray pixels in between here, that means your wind speeds aren't extremely tight. They're still tight enough to produce a brief tornado, but I doubt that is I doubt that's a CC there in terms of a tornado. And if it is a tornado, it's just some weak leaves. Weak leaves. It's a weak tornado that picked up some leaves. And that can actually be a leaf nado, which probably doesn't even warrant a tornado warning with it being that weak. There is a warning criteria, but honestly, it's very, it's not a said and done thing, because I know the warning criteria is, we've seen a lot of crappy tornado warnings, right? We've seen a lot of tornado warnings where we're like, why did they even tornado warn that? Because there's nothing even there. So it doesn't seem like that criteria is always followed. It doesn't seem like that tornado warning criteria is always followed. So we'll have to see if this gets a warning, but I'm not confident in that being a tornado. It could be a number of things. It could be, it's such a light CC. It is a very light CC, and now it's completely gone. So if it was anything, I mean, there's so many things. It could be a little bit of a downburst that pushed some winds up, and the radar, a downburst that pushed winds up, and that lofted some leaves or little sticks up, and that's what the radar picked up. It could be something as simple as corruption, contamination. It could be so many things. And the fact that it wasn't consistent leads me to not believe it was a tornado of any sorts. For me to confirm an unwarned tornado in terms of from a radar standpoint, like where I start really mentioning that it is a tornado on the ground, there has to be a very definitive debris ball for at least 2 to 3 scans. I'm not going to call some tiny little CC drop a tornado. But we've seen, if you're new to the channel, you don't know, why we look at these storms so intensely, even if they're not tornado warned. Actually, about 1 in every 4 tornadoes is unwarned in the US. So if you just do basic math and say we get 1,000 tornadoes a year, you're looking at 250 unwarned tornadoes per year. That's a high amount of unwarned tornadoes. So that's why we look at these storms so intensely, because it's very common that we see unwarned brief tornadoes. It's actually a lot more common than most people think. But typically they are very weak, very brief, and because they're so weak and brief, the National Weather Service doesn't have time to warn them. It's rare that we get a violent unwarned tornado like what we had last year out there in western Nebraska. It's very rare that we get an unwarned violent tornado or strong tornado. So that's what we're going to see today out of these storms. We're going to see just weak little spin up tornadoes that are probably not even going to be able to be picked up on radar because they're so weak. So if we do see tornadoes today out of any of these storms, it's probably going to just be so weak that our radar is not going to be able to pick up any sorts of debris being wafted because the tornado is not very strong. So we're not looking at damaging intense tornadoes today. We're looking at storms that could produce spin up tornadoes that may be able to pick up a few leaves and some sticks. I wouldn't rule out a strong tornado if we could get a discrete supercell in the prime environment, but as you've seen in the last couple of the last hour or so here, even a supercell attached to the warm front or very close to the warm front still isn't able to produce a tornado. So just be weather aware. Like I said, any tornadoes we see today are probably going to be very, very weak and brief. So we'll just monitor them to see if we do see that stronger tornado threat where we can really point it out on radar. And like I said, there is a criteria for tornado warning, so something as weak as that doesn't fit the National Weather Service's criteria for tornado warnings. But like I said, that criteria doesn't appear to be followed very strictly based off of what I've seen in the last 5 years of tracking tornadoes. I remember the PDS tornado warning with no tornado from the National Weather Service in Mount Holly. I also remember the tornado emergency with no tornado in northern Arkansas. And I also remember that was the three most notable NWS mistakes right there. We had a violent tornado unwarned for like 10 to 15 minutes in western Nebraska last year. This year we had a PDS tornado warning with no tornado in southeastern Pennsylvania, I believe it was. And then I think it was 2022, we had the tornado emergency with no tornado in northern Arkansas. I saved it so I can actually go check. Let's see. I believe it was April 15th, 2022. I think it was April 15th, 2022. The EF1 emergency. I remember that northeastern Texas. Lucky was here for that one. I think that was last year. Yeah, it was nocturnal in the night hours of April 15th. I remember it because I was watching a show at like 7 or 8 o'clock, and it was a slight risk for severe weather, a 5% tornado risk. And then there was a tornado emergency. Now, tornadoes, I believe, did happen like after the tornado emergency. When they downgraded the tornado warning, I'm pretty sure the storm did end up producing a few tornadoes. But the storm, the area of rotation that warranted the tornado emergency didn't have a tornado. I'm going to go back to that. April 2022. Yep. Yep. So just make sure I'm on the right day. This doesn't look right. Weird. I'm on the right day. April. Yeah, April is the 4th month of year. January, February, March, April, 4/15, and there's no tornadoes in Arkansas on that day. I swear it produced some tornadoes. I'm so confused because there's literally tornado reports from the National Weather Service site here, but I'm on the damage assessment toolkit. 2022, April 15th, April 15th. I don't know. I'm gonna go see what the NWS reports say here. Oh, yeah. They were. You're right. I forgot about that. That's the whole reason why we had the tornado emergency in the first place. Wasn't it some person from like Ohio or Indiana or something? I remember I heard something, someone did like a documentary on it, and it was like someone from Ohio or Indiana. And there was also reports of like cars flipped over on the highway from a tornado, but it actually wasn't a tornado. Yeah, reports of cars flipped over on Highway 67 in Walnut Ridge, but it actually wasn't a tornado. Wow. No wonder why that had the whole community uproaring. The thing that I also want to make very clear is when there's situations like that where the National Weather Service puts out a tornado emergency in that case because of all the reports of damage, that's not the National Weather Service's fault. And they typically have verified those reports multiple times, and they deem it urgent enough to issue a tornado warning or a higher warning than that. It's the people who falsely report a tornado. It's their fault. Often people will go after the National Weather Service saying, why'd you issue the tornado emergency for no tornado? It shouldn't be the NWS's fault in that case. It should be the person who, or in this case, the multiple people who reported a large tornado. Now, see, it's different in the case this year. We had a PDS tornado warning in southeastern Pennsylvania for a an observed tornado. I believe it was an observed strong tornado, and we didn't have any reports. There was nobody who was there. Nobody reported it, and radar didn't have a tornado, and somehow we still had a PDS tornado warning for something that was never reported or never even there. And radar never even had it, so that was different. That still confused me. That still confuses me to this day. How we ended up with a PDS tornado warning with no chasers reporting a tornado. Nobody was saying there was a tornado on the ground. Radar didn't have any type of debris, and yet it was a confirmed PDS warning. But hey, we all make mistakes, so the National Weather Service tries their best. Without them, we'd be losing thousands of lives every single year to tornadoes and hurricanes and flash floods and so many things. Let's see here. Yeah, so whenever you want to go hate on the National Weather Service, just remember that without them, we'd be losing thousands of people, if not more than that. Enderlin didn't end up being a Tory. It wasn't in a very populated area, so that didn't shock me how it wasn't a Tory. It was not in a populated area. But then again, I remember we had a tornado emergency in western Texas with like barely any people in it. Or was that a PDS warning? No, I can't remember. I remember though, we had like either a PDS or a tornado emergency in western Texas one year. And there was like 200 to 500 people in the warning. I think that was PDS. I think that was PDS. I don't think that was Tory. PDS warning for 1,000 people on that one. I'm going back and I'm looking at PDS tornado warnings now. Oh yeah, remember the PDS tornado warning from 2023 in Chicago? Over 1.7 million people were inside of that one. One of the most populated PDS warnings I've ever seen. Yeah, Lake City was Tory. It also depends on the National Weather Service, too. It depends. It's not a one and done said thing. The criteria for a tornado emergency is a general criteria. Some National Weather Services may not pull the trigger if that criteria is met, whilst others may pull it as quickly as possible when that criteria is met. No, Lake City, Arkansas. Yeah, but I think it was a PDS tornado warning in western Texas that had like barely any population. I think that's the one I remember from a couple years ago. I remember tracking it. It's very faint in my memory, so it was probably from my earlier days of tracking. But there's just general criterias for tornado warnings. Like I said, the National Weather Service, that's who issues obviously the warnings, but it's going to be a little bit different for every National Weather Service because some may not pull a tornado warning for a weak area of rotation, whilst other NWSs may. It just depends. Point is, they try their best and they do a pretty good job. Tornadoes would be a whole lot more deadly if it wasn't for the National Weather Service. Tornado watch was extended by 1, 2, 3, 4 counties there in eastern Alabama. So, Tuskegee, you just got put inside a tornado watch as well as Roanoke. That's in east central Alabama. What's the highest tornado warning you've been under? One of my first tornado warnings I ever chased was a PDS tornado warning in northern North Carolina. A nocturnal tornado. Hit Reidsville. Very, very close to where I lived at the time. That was the highest tornado warning I've been in. Highest severe probably was a PDS severe. I'm pretty sure I've chased a PDS severe for 80-mile-an-hour winds. And then I've been in a considerable flash flood many, many times. I don't know if I've ever been in a flash flood emergency. If it was probably chasing Helene in North Carolina. If I ever drove through a flash flood emergency warning. Never been under a hurricane warning. I've been under a tropical storm watch. I've been under a tropical storm warning. I've been under a hurricane watch. Never been under a hurricane warning yet. Still haven't been able to chase one of those. Wasn't that in 2022? Yep, pretty sure. Pretty sure. Haven't been under a blizzard warning. Been under an ice storm warning, winter storm warning, winter weather advisory, winter storm watch, but I don't think I've had a blizzard warning. Actually, you know what? I probably was under one. Let's see. I wonder. Ah, dang it. Nope. 2016 blizzard warnings were in Northern Virginia. Not where I lived at the time. I never lived in Northern Virginia anyways. What about 2018? I remember a few snowstorms here. I have no idea. My chair sunk on me. So, yeah, I don't know if I've been under a blizzard warning. Has my county ever been under a blizzard warning? I don't think my county's ever been under a blizzard warning. Yeah, I don't see anything about my county ever being under a blizzard warning, so that's two things I gotta get in. I have to be into I gotta get into a blizzard warning and I gotta get into a hurricane warning. That's my goal for 2026. I don't think either one of those are gonna happen, to be honest with you. A hurricane warning is very difficult to get into over here. And I'm not planning on getting down to Florida. And a blizzard warning, like I said, if I've never been under one, oof, might as well just count me out. Because I don't plan on going to Minnesota to get under one anytime soon. No, I didn't chase Dorian. I'm trying to see if there was possibly a hurricane that somehow stayed a hurricane until it hit me in my area. But I don't think so. So hopefully I'll be able to chase a hurricane in 2026 and maybe a blizzard. The blizzard is going to be very, very difficult. It will be very hard to chase a blizzard, man. Yeah, new model runs for northern Wisconsin and western Michigan show up to 40 inches of snowfall being possible. So, what did the blizzard warnings say? Hello, water. 30 inches of snowfall. Greatest in higher terrains with winds gusting up to 55 miles per hour. 22 inches of snowfall. So, yeah, if we do get 3 feet of snowfall, the most likely area for that is right in here. Do we? I don't think we have any snowfall products on the HRRR on Weatherwise. Well, weather-wise, we got to get some snow products in here, man. Yeah, I think like the only snow product weather-wise has is the main radar site precipitation type. Unless it is under a pro or a plus subscription. I don't have a pro or plus subscription yet. Not yet. Let's see, proxy. Now, that is definitely a wall cloud. Where's that at? Hold on, I gotta refresh. Let's see here. Okay, I'm pretty sure weatherwise just bugged out there for a bit, so I'm gonna just close it real quick. There we go. Okay, fixed it. I really need to get the Pro or Plus, that way I can get the actual app itself. So that is down here in southern Alabama. So wall cloud reported with this storm here in Pineville in southern Alabama, apparently. And that's just what we're going to see today. We're going to see a couple wall clouds for sure today. And one of those wall clouds may produce brief tornado or two. And if we can get the perfect storm to form, I wouldn't rule out a strong tornado, but that strong tornado threat, that has gone very low. It is a very low chance and a very conditional risk for a strong tornado. Oh, look at these winter storm warnings spazzing out over here. Look at this. Christmas lights. We will not get a 75 sig tour next year. Heck no. We haven't had a 45 sig tour since 2021. So, until we start seeing 60 sig tours every year, there's no need to go any higher than that. Yeah, yesterday would have been a much better tornado event if it had better lower level lapse rates, and today would have been a better tornado event if we had better mid-level lapse rates. We barely even get a high risk every year. This year was well, we should have had 3 high risks, but we had 2 high risks this year. We should have had 3. Wait, did we even have 2 high risks? I'm pretty sure we did. Why can't I remember the second one? I swear we did. Oh yeah, duh. Yep. 2 high risks. Should have had 3 though. March 14th was definitely high risk classification. Honestly, the high risks didn't perform that well. I mean, I think it was April 2nd that performed decent. But really, the only high risk worthy event this year was probably March 14th. Let's see. Yeah, a lot of spin-up tornadoes in that case, but I want to see April 2nd. Yeah, 0 EF4s. That's what I thought. I don't know if that verified as a high risk. How many EF3s did we have? We had 6 EF3s, but that's from April 2nd through the 7th. 2 EF3s on April 2nd. I don't think that verifies as a high risk. Two EF3s. And the southern side of the high risk only had 1 tornado, maybe 2. I can't tell if that's a stacked tornado report or not. Southern side of the high risk had 1 or 2 tornadoes. You can't count that, Jake. Goes from 00. Well, you can go from midnight to midnight, or you could go from 00Z to 00Z, whichever one. Midnight to midnight's probably better. because the SPC still updates at 01Z. And then March 15th definitely didn't verify. I don't really know why that was much of a debate for people. I know we had, I believe it was one violent tour in like southern Mississippi, but that was barely even in the high risk. And then the rest were all relatively brief, weak spin ups. Let's see, how many EF2s did we have during that? Or EF3s? 3. So I really don't think either one of our high risks verified this year. And that was not a small high risk. That high risk was half the size of Mississippi and half the size of Alabama on March 15th. Now, the April 2nd one was a little bit, I mean, that was still a pretty large high risk. It was thin, though. I mean, yeah, that stretched Tennessee, Kentucky, Illinois, Missouri, Mississippi, Arkansas. So I really just think, in my opinion, only March 14th. Now, I can tell you this, April 2nd definitely had a bunch of tornadoes, but none of them were actually violent. So I feel like you have to have, in my opinion, there has to be at least one violent tornado in the high-risk area for it to verify violent-wise. But then you have to have a plentiful amount of EF2 to EF3s as well. Because remember, when you go, it's not like if it was a 30% non-hatched, yeah, April 2nd would have verified. But when you put a hatched risk on a high risk, you're talking about multiple violent tornadoes being possible with 1 or 2 expected. I mean, I could just read the wording real quick here from March 15th wording was almost like an apocalyptic type wording event. Because that was a 95 PDS tornado watch, as high as it possibly gets from the Storm Prediction Center. So that was like an apocalyptic type wording with that event. But if I just go to April 2nd here, we scroll down. Let's see. Numerous tornadoes, multiple EF3 plus tornadoes likely. But then I actually got to find the... Oh, I can't even get to it. I was going to try to find the watches. The watches are where the highest wording is. Dang, 85-mile-an-hour winds. I mean, I guess you could say it's borderline verification there for April 2nd. Let's see, does this go all the way back to... Nope. Does not go back that far. Everyone has their different opinions on it. Some people will be very, very quick to say it definitely verified. I'm more skeptical on it. And then, in my opinion, March 15th didn't verify. And March 14th verified perfectly as a high risk. but there wasn't a high risk. So there wasn't even a high risk that day. What'd you say, May 16th? I don't even remember that day. Was that the London tornado? Was it on that day? May 16th, 2025. Let's see here. I mean, I'd say that verified. Not a lot of EF3s, however, you did get a lot of EF2s as well as an EF4. So I'd say that verified perfectly as a moderate. I don't think it would have verified as a high risk because actually 2 EF4s apparently. I don't think that would have verified as a high risk because I don't think the placement of the high risk would have ended up being where the greatest tornado threat was, because I know model runs were really struggling on that one. Yeah, I remember that. We had the EF4 in southern Illinois and then the EF4 in southeastern Kentucky. But they were very far spaced, so for you to cover both those EF4s, it would have had to be a big high risk. But that's being a little bit picky. I mean, even if they did have a high risk on that day, you really could say it verified because you had what, like 11 EF2s and 2 EF4s. You could debate that. All of them are actually debatable. March 15th, April 2nd, May 16th, they are all debatable verifications of high risks. March 14th as well. Either way, all of them verified as either high-end moderates or high risks. None of them were a bust or a significant underperformance or anything like, holy. Let me get this radar on that real quick. Looked a lot stronger when I clicked it on Weatherwise there. Gave me a bit of a heart attack. Can't really tell if there's anything happening with that. I could tell you there's probably some small hail happening. But I can't really tell if it's anything tornadic in there. It's super close to the radar too, so that's also why it looks very strong. It looks really strong because the radar's scanning it like only 250 some feet up. So we'll wait to see what that has on the next scan to see if that is going to get any stronger as it leaves the radar site. Do I remember May 18th? So you got to tell me the tornadoes on the day, and then I'll probably remember it. It's hard to remember every single date. Here, I'll look at it. Let's see. Ooh, severe warning on that. Oh, yeah. That's Plevna, I believe. Yeah. You guys are saying Plevna and also the Greensburg Southern Kansas tornado. Right when we ended, that storm started to strengthen. I do remember that. Also, a very crazy MCD on that. 140 to 170 mile per hour peak tornado intensity and 4-inch hail equal to or just less than 4-inch hail. That was a crazy MCD right there. For some reason, it won't let me see watches. Is this a tour possible? 1-inch hail, 60 mile an hour winds, not tour possible. So that's your first severe of the day. First severe thunderstorm warning of the day there. So if you're in that yellow box, just be away from doors and windows and you will be perfectly fine. I would stay close to your safe spot. Honestly, I would stay pretty close just in case because this storm could be rotating. If it picks up in rotation and if we do get a tornado warning, then you'll be right next to that safe spot. So I'd be away from doors and windows and close to your safe spot just in case. Still want to watch these 2 miniature supercells for a brief tornado threat, but unfortunately we do have a big radar hole that is not going to allow us to see what those storms are doing very well. Yeah, definitely an easy call for a severe thunderstorm warning there. Plenty of lightning and maybe even some small hail there just north of the radar. Pretty easy call to severe warn that one. Not tour possible, though, because, well, we really can't see if there's any rotation when it's on top of the radar. So we'll wait and see if this, if any of these storms increase with tornadic activity here over the next couple minutes. See if anything changes, but really just a brief tornado threat today. I like how both of our tornado threats yesterday and today both downtrended right when we got to day of. Like Sunday, I thought yesterday was going to be a big tornado day with those prefrontals. And then yesterday, I thought today was going to be a big day because it looked like more of semi-discrete storms along the front. But lapse rates killed both of the threats, thankfully. So, not much. Unfortunately, though, we did have that damaging tornado in northern Houston yesterday. I know there was a lot of damage there, including a house fire. I saw also possibly a gas leak, too. So I know there was quite a bit of damage yesterday in just north of northern Houston. Are y'all doing a recap of 2025? You guys are forgetting the first thing we started off with, the Gulf Coast blizzard. That was the first blizzard warning to ever be issued in southwestern Louisiana. And also broke the record for the most snowfall ever fallen anywhere in Florida state history ever recorded. Then you moved on all the way up to March 14th with one of the most violent outbreaks in a while. Multiple long-tracked, intense, violent tornadoes, and that spread even well into the overnight hours. Then you went to March 15th, which prior to that, March 14th, day 2 outlook, you got an upgrade to the first day 2 high risk in, I don't know how long it was. I think it was a long time. First day 2 high risk in a long time for March 15th. That ended up being a relatively underperforming day, but we did have one violent tornado in southern Mississippi. And then you moved on to April 2nd, and you got another high risk, and that performed well. Verified right around the realms of a high risk. And then after that, what'd you have next? Probably probably May. I'm thinking May 16th was a pretty big day. May, what was it, 18th was a pretty big day. And then you move to the first EF5 in 12 years on June 20th. We also had a derecho in Pennsylvania. That got confirmed, by the way. Recently, the National Weather Service there in Pittsburgh did upgrade that to a derecho from some month. Whatever month we had that line move through Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, that was upgraded to a derecho like a week or two ago. And then you also had the derecho on June 20th too. And then I'm sure we had some notable events in July. I mean, it was just a crazy day. And then crazy tornado season. And then you moved on to hurricane season, which thankfully wasn't that bad until we got to Melissa. But we did have like 3 Category 5 hurricanes and multiple major hurricanes. But thankfully, most stayed out to sea up until the last hurricane of the season, which was Melissa, being tied for the strongest landfall in recorded history for the Northern Atlantic. 185, 897? 890 something. 890 something. I forgot the exact millibar. 893, 894, 895, something. It's been a while. I'll go back to my tweet and see. And see if I can find it. Lord have mercy. 892. 892, my word. I don't even think I said that. 185, 892. Debatably tied for the strongest hurricane ever recorded in the Atlantic. I do believe it was 190 to 195. Also, it did break the record for the strongest wind gust ever recorded in the world, right? By a cyclone. I'm pretty sure 252 mile an hour observed wind gusts from Dropson that was observed, and they confirmed that 252 mile an hour winds. Pretty sure that was the strongest wind speeds ever recorded from a cyclone ever. Highest, let's see. Yeah, it says Melissa. Says Melissa. For the, let's see. For the Atlantic. It does say in 1996, Cyclone Olivia in Australia had a verified surface gust of 253, 1 mile per hour greater than Melissa. I have never heard of that before. How the heck does a Category 4 hurricane, or in this case, Category 4 cyclone, produce a 253 mile an hour wind gust? So, Melissa was the highest wind gust ever recorded in the Atlantic. And the Pacific as well. But Australia apparently had a higher wind gust. So, highest wind gust ever recorded in the Atlantic Basin, in the Eastern Pacific, and the Western Pacific. Might as well throw the Central Pacific in there for more credit. But not including cyclones there in the Indian Ocean. So if you include cyclones, it doesn't fall under that category as the highest wind gust recorded. I trust the Dropson more too because we've come a long way in the last about 30 years in technology. So I trust Dropson more as well. Now, for the highest sustained wind speeds, I know for a fact that was Patricia in the Eastern Pacific, because we looked at that a couple days ago. That was at 215 sustain in 2015 in late October. And of course, Typhoon Tip holds the lowest millibar. I know that one as well. And apparently it was recorded on land too, which would actually make it even well more impressive than Melissa. Because over open ocean, there's no interference with wind and the friction between land. So actually, wind speeds over land being higher than wind speeds over the ocean, for the record, is substantially more impressive. If that's actually verified. Apparently it was verified. But like I said, that was almost 30 years ago now, so technology's come a very long way in 30 years. So that severe expires in 39 minutes. We won't have much more new information for the next couple hours, and from here on out, our environment will be decreasing. So we've passed our peak tornado threat, if you want to call it that. It's not really a peak tornado threat. Not much has actually happened. Let's see here. Also, this hurricane season was one tropical storm below average, 2 hurricanes below average, and of course our major hurricanes were well above average. So overall the season comes just barely shy of an average hurricane season. In terms of, you gotta, really the named storms are the most important there. Now if you count Ace, we blew that out of the water. We blew that out of the water with 3 Category 5 hurricanes. I can't actually find the Ace. They changed it on this site, made it more complicated to find. Let's see. Sea surface. Recon. Thankfully, we won't be needing that anymore this year. We won't be needing recon anymore this year. Hurricane season is done. Well, not officially, but there doesn't look to be any threat of a hurricane for the next 5 days that we have left in this hurricane season. All right, let's see the Ace. Yeah, well above average. Here's Ace for the 2025 Atlantic hurricane season. I'm going to zoom it out. There you go. I wonder when we had Category 5 hurricanes here. I can't really tell. I can't tell when we had Category 5 hurricanes. So 2025's hurricane season was historic and also below average and also not historic. Because we never had a hurricane in the Gulf. We never had a hurricane make landfall in the United States for the first time in 10 years in any given month. We never had a hurricane hit the U.S. whatsoever. Or I do think we had a tropical storm. I think we had one tropical storm hit the U.S. And that was, I think it was near July 4th or 5th in South Carolina. I think it was the only tropical storm to hit the U.S. And then I know we had a tropical storm hit Mexico. But no hurricanes hit the U.S. And then we also had that historic lull in activity from mid-August to mid-September, which is your peak, your climatological peak of hurricane season there. And then, of course, you had the historic 3 Category 5 hurricanes, and then you had Melissa being very historic as well. So it was historic and also not historic in its own perspective there. And then we will finish in the well above average category there for ACE. Average is right at that black line. Above average is in the green line right there. Well above average is right up in here. And then extremely well above average is up in this area, which we rarely ever see in any given time of any year. But you can see we actually, because we had a Cat 5 so soon, we were at one point on that edge, if not maybe barely in, to that extremely above average category there. And we probably were with Beryl in 2024. Beryl probably shot us into that extremely above average category for climatology last year. Let's see. Yeah, look at that. Let me show you real quick. So, actually, this is 2024, right? Or 2025, I mean. You see this little line here? That's Beryl. Beryl caused that line. It didn't go up. It used to not go up, but because we had Beryl, watch this. Beryl actually changed our climatology right there on this site. Here's 2024, and you can see it lines up perfectly with that line. And that's because that's where Beryl was. So Beryl was probably outside of the graph. And that's never happened before. So they had to adjust that graph for future reference now because Beryl broke it. Being a Category 5 so early in the season. And a long-tracked Category 5 too last year. One of the most impressive hurricanes, man. I don't quite think it was as impressive as Melissa, honestly. But Beryl did break some records that won't be broken for a couple decades, most likely. But Melissa broke a record that probably won't be broken for a lot more decades, maybe even... Honestly, I can't even say a century. The ceiling that we have every hurricane season is always what we saw with Melissa. It's just rare that it actually aligns properly to form something like Melissa. Couple severes now being put out here. We got a new severe out here for the Birmingham Metro. So that's going to have a couple hundreds of thousands of people inside of it. Yep, 600 and over 640,000 people inside of that new severe for the Birmingham Metro. Our peak environment is already passed. We are decreasing from here on out. Our peak environment is already over. Still favorable for tornadoes for about the next 4 hours or so. And we'll really have to watch little areas of spin here just in case. But really, there's like nothing tornadic to watch here. Watching for some brief wall clouds or funnels out of these few supercells down in here. Those tiny cells. And then we'll also need to watch, like I said, just these in this area. So keeping an eye on that. You can see why they went severe with that, because we are getting some stronger wind speeds here. Up to 50 to 60 mile an hour winds there in that dark green to getting into the blues. As well as maybe some very tiny hail inside of this. And a bunch of lightning. So definitely warranted that severe thunderstorm warning they just issued for the next 46 minutes there. Yep. A historic Category 5 and a historic EF5 in the same year. In the same year. A historic blizzard, a historic EF5, and a historic Cat 5. All in the same year. And every single one of them broke records. And some of them broke records that will be probably not broken for a couple decades. All of them broke records that probably won't be broken for a couple decades. Honestly, I'm not even shocked anymore. Nah, it's still shocking. We will get into a lull of activity. It happened after 2017, or was it? Hold on, actually, it might have been after 2018. After 20. Well, no, hold on. I remember there was an inactive period. I'm trying to find out when it was. We had like a 5+ year drought of major hurricanes hitting the U.S. We have these little drought periods of things. It was from like, I don't know when you could exactly say it because we did have an EF5 in 2013. So, I mean, between like 2013 and 2016, very inactive. And then if you don't count the tornadoes, you could probably go back to 2007 all the way to 2016. Or 2007, 2008, all the way to 2016. We're due for a break. We're due for a break. Hopefully next year is the start of a less active weather pattern for the next few years. But I do see the plains being more active next year. I think we'll be talking a lot more about the plains traditional tornado outbreak, or I can't English, my goodness. The traditional tornado alley is where we're going to be talking about a lot more next year, as opposed to Dixie Alley in the Midwest. Iowa had like a historic inactive season this year. I thought Iowa was going to be above average, so on my tornado forecast, Iowa was definitely a big time outlier on my forecast. But outside of like Iowa, I did pretty good. Because we highlighted, if you go back to the tornado season forecast, we highlighted Dixie Alley and the central U.S. for April and May. For March, April, and May. I think March we highlighted the southern to the south central U.S. And then in May we highlighted the central U.S. And then in April we highlighted... March we highlighted down in here for the biggest threat for severe weather. And then April we shifted that up here. And then May, I think I shifted it just a little bit larger in all locations. Big snows for Caleb. Probably not. Probably not. I don't think I can let that happen, Caleb. No snow for you this season. Winter forecasts are by far the hardest forecasts ever. There's nothing harder than a winter forecast. I've done great with hurricane season forecasts and tornado season forecasts, although this, I wasn't as proud of my hurricane season forecast this year. I definitely went too high on the named storms, but that's because I didn't expect September to have very minimal activity. From the middle of August to the middle of September, we had like one named storm, or possibly even none. I didn't expect that to happen, so if I had known that was going to happen, I would have dropped my numbers a lot more. Surely one of these upcoming storms will give snow in VA. Hey, you already got snow. I saw you up in Roanoke already getting snow, like last month or early this month. I think it was last month. You don't need any more snow. It's my turn. your snow's done, right? But no, I do think December now looks really good for snowfall too, starting now already. We're in winter now, really. We're in that snowstorm pattern now all the way through at least the middle of December. We'll have to see what the end of December looks like. But now through at least the middle of December looks very active for snowstorms. We'll have to see what the end of December looks like, and then finally in January, everything should break loose. No accumulation, fair. Fair. Still looking for a good snowstorm, huh? We don't typically get them till January. Golly. 68-mile-an-hour wind gusts right there. Woof. Now, if that ain't a blizzard, I don't know what is. That is a kicking blizzard across South Dakota, North Dakota, and Minnesota right now. You guys go from EF5s in June, derechos in June, to blizzards in November. Also had that land cane. Wasn't June 20th the land cane too? Didn't we have like 110-mile-an-hour land cane in South Dakota on June 20th? Or was that a different derecho? Pretty sure that was the land cane too. Man, June 20th was beyond historic. That was insane. Yeah, definitely going to watch this. If we're going to get a tornado in the near future here, it's going to be near Birmingham or barely east of Birmingham. That's going to be where our best chance for a tornado is over the next 30 or so minutes. All right, let's dive into a little bit of the future here, because we are probably going to wrap up here pretty soon. So before I get into this, though, if you haven't already, make sure you hit that like button and share the stream and the channel with your family, friends, social media. And consider hitting that subscribe button with a notification bell set to all so you know when I go live again or upload a video. Probably not going to have a bunch of content in the next few days. Honestly, I probably won't have any content till Saturday, Friday or Saturday, one or the other. Because I'm going to definitely taking tomorrow off and definitely taking Thanksgiving off. So I'll either be back Friday or Saturday, depending on how that snowstorm in the north central U.S. looks, back towards Iowa. Tornado yesterday was rated EF too. Wouldn't surprise me if that is true. I haven't gotten Yep, you are right. Yep. Sure is 116-mile-an-hour EF2 from yesterday in northern Houston. All right, so let's talk about the future here. Let's pull this on out. So for the rest of today, we're going to continue to see rapidly deteriorating conditions with blizzard conditions happening here. We're also seeing winds upwards of 70 miles per hour with this low pressure. And as this gets over Michigan, we could see winds as high as 80 miles per hour going into tomorrow afternoon and evening as we see 2 to 3 feet of snowfall across northern Wisconsin and portions of Michigan with wind gusts upwards of 80 miles per hour there. And then we will see a pretty notable lake effect snowfall event across New York and maybe far northern Pennsylvania there. That's a look at your simulated snowfall totals for this snowstorm. And you could see upwards of 3 feet of snowfall in Michigan and Wisconsin and upwards of a foot of snowfall in the lake effect areas in Pennsylvania and in New York as well as northwestern Michigan. Then as we go into Friday night, we'll continue to watch a system here beginning to brew across the western portions of the U.S., and this should set the stage for potentially a major snowstorm across Iowa, Wisconsin, and maybe northern Illinois. So that's what we're going to want to watch extremely closely because there's a lot of model disagreements on that. Wow, the Canadian is just a crazy snowstorm across the north central U.S. right there. Widespread 9 inches to a foot of snowfall across most of Iowa, even into St. Louis there, upwards of a foot of snowfall in downtown St. Louis, even back into central Illinois, widespread 6 to 10 inches of snowfall there on the Canadian model run. And the European model run is in pretty good agreement with that. So pretty good agreement with that more southern track there. But the GFS is the one that has a little bit more of a northern track, less snowfall for Missouri and Illinois, but still a very notable overall snowstorm for Saturday and Sunday there. That's your 24-hour snowfall totals from Saturday night to Sunday morning. Very widespread. Another thing that we could be talking about here is severe weather, although I don't think it will be nearly as potentially interesting and notable as what yesterday and today was, even though both days underperformed, thankfully. I don't think it will be as bad as what we were thinking yesterday and today would be, but we could see a brief period of some severe weather, so we'll need to watch that across Texas and Louisiana, but it does not look like it will be an issue. Now, the mean snow accumulation is what we really want to look at here on the GEFS ensemble. And we're going to draw a line here. So we're not going to look at any snow totals north of that black line and pull it out. So the mean snow accumulations definitely paints the highest snowfall totals right in here. That's where the highest snowfall totals are most likely to occur. Going into Saturday. So we'll have to watch that Friday night all the way till Sunday afternoon. And then going into Sunday, it will start to exit the northeastern U.S. Still could see some additional snowfall totals over there. Lake effect snowfall. And then we'll probably get another chance for a snowstorm going into very early December. But honestly, we're not going to go that far out because there's so much uncertainty. And it will probably carry a bit of a severe threat with it in early December as well. So that's your little update there. Funnel. Let me see. Wait, which one are you looking at? Oh, it's got to be the northern one in Birmingham. Let's see. Oh man, I can't rewind this. This one's not available to be rewinded. That's not good. Well, if it was a funnel, it was probably very brief, considering you said I missed it. I mean, that's like a 1-minute funnel. If it even was a funnel. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if you actually did see a funnel there, because it actually looks like an okay amount of rotation. But thankfully, it fell apart. Yeah, you can send it in the Discord if you want, if it allows you to. I don't know if you're able to. Yeah, so probably just had a brief funnel across the northern portions of Birmingham, Alabama. If it doesn't, then you could just direct DM me. And of course, Discord has that strict, like, 10, 15 megabyte video limit there. But alright. I'm probably going to head off here, honestly. Because these storms are fairly on the weaker side of things. We'll have to watch for a bit of a brief tornado risk. 60 mile-an-hour winds and 1-inch hail still being possible for the rest of the day, but I'm probably going to head off and go outside and breathe some fresh air. Not be stuck indoors all day. So, yeah, that's going to be about it. I appreciate all you guys for tuning in. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that like button, share the stream with your family, friends, social media, and subscribe if you're new. The next planned live stream or video, I'll let you know in the community post, probably someday, not Sunday, someday. I'll let you know on the community post when I'll be live or a video will be up. And that will be either Friday or Saturday, depending how I feel, depending if I'm doing anything with my family on Friday. And then I know I will be busy next weekend too. So I won't see you for Thanksgiving because I'll be spending it with my family. So happy Thanksgiving. I hope you guys all have a great Thanksgiving. And if you haven't already, prepare to set up that Christmas tree because you got to get in the holiday spirit. Once Thanksgiving's over, getting rid of all the fall stuff and throwing in all the Christmas stuff. So I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, a great Thanksgiving. Spend it with your family. And yeah, I will see you guys in either a video or stream Friday or Saturday. Again, I'll just let you know in the community post one of the upcoming days. So thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you mods for mod chat, Caleb, Ben, and Chip for modding chat. Always good to see you guys back in here for a stream. And I hope you have, again, a fantastic rest of your Tuesday and have a great Thanksgiving. I think that's about it. So now I gotta wait 20 seconds until it's time for me to play my outro music. Because yesterday I started it too late, and then the day before that, I started too early. No going to sleep, Caleb. But good night. All right. That's it. So just stay weather aware, though, especially in central and eastern Alabama, because we could have a brief tornado, 60-mile-an-hour winds, or 1-inch hail. I'll keep watching it, but I highly doubt I will be back tonight. I don't plan on it. So I'll see you guys either Friday or Saturday in a video or live stream. Again, have a great rest of your Tuesday. Have a great Thanksgiving. And again, thank you, mods from on chat. Goodbye. Stay safe. Have a great rest of your Tuesday. Thank you, Mods for Mon chat, and I'll see you guys in either Friday or Saturday's live stream or video. Again, happy Thanksgiving. Goodbye.